What's up, everybody? I'm Katie Burt, Content Manager for CanadaFootballChat.com. Welcome to the Recruiting Masters podcast, episode 9, brought to you by the CFC Insider. We're on the road for this last week and a half. We've got Clint Uttley on the show. Clint Uttley was a former U Sports head coach and is the national recruiting analyst and the head of the CFC Scouting Bureau, which develops the CFC 100, the CFC 150, and the CFC 60 top player class rankings. Hey, Clint, what's up?
Hey, Katie, how are you?
Good, thanks. So we went over we're just we finished up the Burlington tryouts just yesterday, and we're heading into our last city, the Montreal tryouts for the CFC Prospect Game that's going to be broadcast on TSN on June 1st for the top high school prospects. So we talked about the BC and the Calgary, the BC and the Winnipeg players, and today we're going to speak about some of the top performers that we noticed at the Calgary tryout just recently. So we're going to get right into it. But before we do that, everybody, you can follow us on our Facebook, our Twitter at ChatFootball, Instagram, CFC_football, and our YouTube for more exclusive content. We've been pumping out a lot of videos and stuff on Twitter and Instagram. You don't want to miss that. So check us out there. So our first of all, Clint, just general, we're going into our last one. What has been your overall opinion of the combines that have gone on in the past couple cities so far?
They've been pretty impressive. There's been some really impressive line play, both offensively and defensively. There's a number of receivers who've really jumped out. There's kids jumping out at every position, but those are some of the highlights. Calgary was no disappointment. There was 40 plus, almost 50 prospects who we invited who showed up and did a really good job in testing. So, not that big of a surprise considering Alberta is one of the bigger football playing provinces in Canada. So they did a really good job.
So far, have you noticed any trends in any of the cities? One city's stronger with their linemen, one city's stronger with quarterbacks or receivers, etc. Have you noticed any sort of trend, or are they pretty much equal across the board?
It's been pretty balanced. I've noticed a lot of really good linemen, probably because I'm spending quite a bit of time at those combines with the linemen. But there's been a really good mix of offensive and defensive linemen. There's been about 5 or 6 quarterbacks who have really jumped out as well. There's also been a couple of really good athletes, both at the receiver position, DB position. The linebacker position has been a little thin, but I would say that we're not maybe getting the quantity, but we've got the quality. So there's been some really impressive prospects. There's a couple of 2021 defensive linemen who we may ask to play linebacker in the prospect game, just because of how well they tested, how well the defensive line group is, and just because I myself have kind of discussed with some other members of the selection committee that they might project better at that level, at that position. So all in all, it's been really good. No complaints. Tomorrow's going to kind of be a wild card here in Montreal, just because we invited a lot of kids in the Montreal area. So we don't have the exposure that we do to the kids like we did at the showcases leading up in the other provinces. So it'll be a wild card, but it won't be disappointing. I already know that, just because there's such a real commitment to football in the province of Quebec. So yeah, I'm looking forward to tomorrow, and I'm looking forward to actually getting that final list made up for our selection committee so they can give us their 2 cents.
Well, I know that both you and I have been on the road for all of these and have heard some of the deliberations, and it's going to be a tough job for you folks.
Oh yeah, it's you know what, we're starting to get feedback already from what we've seen. Obviously, there's been no decisions, or there's nothing final done until we're done tomorrow at 1:00. But there's been some really already uber competitive, we'll call them positional battles. But you're looking at kids who are CFC 100s and not just 100s. You're looking at kids who are CFC 50s, so they're inside the top 50 in the country, and they may not make the game. So I mean, that's how competitive it is. And now that we've opened it to some of the top 2021 prospects, it's kind of up the ante even more. So I mean, there's been some really, really impressive kids in both age groups, players or prospects in both age groups, 2020 and 2021. But like, we saw a couple of players, we'll talk about them here coming up, but we saw a grade 10 defensive player who's like 6'2", 250 pounds and runs like a linebacker. I just don't remember the last time I saw a player like that in Canada.
So if you're, folks, if you're wanting to know where you can find these rankings that we're talking about, the CFC 100, the CFC 150, and the CFC 60, you can find that on the rankings tab on CanadaFootballChat.com. And don't forget to purchase your CFC Insider membership in order to view all these rankings and more exclusive content. So let's get right into it. We've got Colby Herford, who we saw at the showcase. And, he stood out there. And again, he did a great job at this one as well. 6 foot, 165 receiver, class of 2020. He goes to Salisbury in Edmonton, or I guess I should say Sherbrooke, or whereabouts is that? So where's Salisbury? Sherbrooke Park. So he probably had the best all-around combine performance in Calgary as a general consensus. What did he do? Did he elevate his game at this one?
I would say he improved his tests. Like his combine performance was better than it was in Edmonton, and it was pretty good in Edmonton. So, I mean, Colby's going to get a look just off his performance, and then obviously if you watch his highlight film, and I mean, he did a solid, okay job in the positional drills, and obviously he has the athleticism to separate as a receiver in the one-on-one periods. But I mean, he will get a long, hard look just off his combine numbers. And then, yeah, I mean, he's a player too. I mean, some of these kids excel in one part of our tryout process and they may struggle a little bit in the other, but we kind of look at the whole picture and kind of piece it together. So even though he may have dropped a couple balls, he actually has the numbers that are going to get him looked at when we get into the final stages of this selection process.
So another receiver that also stuck out from Swift Current, Rhett Vavra, 5'11", 150 pounds, a younger player, 2021 class. He was the only player so far in the tryouts that have registered a sub-4 second in the T-test. I believe it was 3.99. But he also demonstrated that he can run pretty good routes and get open.
Yep, he did a really good job. When we were doing the T-test, when he actually registered the 3.99, there was both myself and another veteran U Sports coach who now helps and works with CFC. We had the same time. So at first I thought I was maybe a little quick, and then we compared stopwatches and we both had the exact same time. And you could tell when he was going through that particular rep, it was fast.
Yeah, it was really quick.
Yeah, so I think we actually found it on the video today. And maybe at some point we can kind of rip that off and put it out so people can kind of see what a sub-4 second T-test looks like. But
we did. I believe it's on our Instagram account.
Okay. So, I mean, it was fast. It was really, really fast. And then he just he uses that quickness and that ability, that lateral movement and just that explosion to actually run himself uncovered or get himself open. So, yeah, I mean, obviously he's going to have to grow a little bit, put some weight on that frame. But being the class of 2021, I think he did enough with his test scores too, and enough in the one-on-one period to get a look at that. To get a look by the selection committee.
So a running back coming out of Henry Wisewood, who did a pretty good job at the combine as well. He had a solid performance in the positional drills. Is Jaden Caston, 5'10", 175 pounds, class of 2020. What do you think about him?
He just moved really well, and I liked how he was put together. And then the thing that kind of caught my eyes was his combine numbers were solid, but when they were doing some work with the quarterbacks and they were running routes at different levels out of the backfield or maybe even a couple of times from the slot position, more out of the backfield. I mean, Jaden did a good job of running his route, and he made some difficult catches look easy. So that kind of just demonstrated to me that he's pretty athletic. And then if you couple that with his test scores, and then you take a look at his huddle film, you know what? I would probably say if there was one or two running backs that we're going to put into the prospect game out of Calgary, he's for sure probably going to get a real good look at one of those positions.
So then, staying on the offensive side of the ball, still we have the receiver Alec Ayuman, 6'3", 195 pounds, a younger player, class of 2021. But even though he is one of the younger players, we were all discussing this, that he may very well be one of the top receiving prospects already.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue with that. If you kind of use the measurables, so actually like his height and weight, I think he's 6'2", maybe even 6'3". He looks like a defensive end, put it that way.
Yeah, we had him at 6'3".
Yeah, so I mean, he actually looks like a defensive end, but he plays a receiver. He can probably play inside or outside. But I mean, he did a ridiculous job, both in the combine for a young guy who's that big. He kind of demonstrated he can run and he's fluid. And then he did a really good job of catching the ball. So, yeah, totally 100% agree that he might be one of the better receiver prospects in the country already.
And he's coming out of that Medicine Hat program that usually develops pretty good athletes.
Yeah, they seem to have a good program there. There was 3 or 4 players last year. There was a receiver and a quarterback and a linebacker. We kind of caught on to them later on in their senior year, but now they're kind of in the mix, and we know that they actually have a solid program growing there. So I mean, we'll continue to look for prospects in Medicine Hat as well as the other parts of Alberta. I mean, let's just be honest, football in Alberta is important, and they do a good job all over the province.
So another prospect that we've kind of been keeping our eye on throughout his last football season is Charlie Deland, 5'11", 165 pounds, 2020, a defensive back out of St. Francis. He demonstrated why he's one of the top DB prospects in all of the tryouts so far. But he also does a really good job in man-to-man cover.
Yep, Charlie actually, after I watched his film and then watched his huddle film, and you kind of see his heights and his weights. And when I got to see him in person, I was like, whoa, he kind of exceeded expectations. So, yeah, and then he tested well, and he showed that he has that lower half kind of explosion. And then, you know what, he did a really good job of covering routes inside. So, I mean, in our prospect game, it's going to be 12-man football. So those defensive halfbacks are going to have to be able to put their hands on people and run with them. So I think Charlie might fit into one of those roles. If I was to say anything about the tryout in Calgary, which was the only tryout in Alberta, I would say Charlie was the top DB coming out of the Calgary tryout.
I think he's taller than 5'11". I'm 6'1", and he was pretty even with me. Are you sure he's only 5'11"?
That could be his old numbers, right? Like
yeah, I think he's taller.
Yeah. Well, like I tell the kids all the time, your huddle account and your Twitter account and all those things need to sync up, and you have to keep those heights and weights constantly updated. It's like your online resume, and you're correct. I mean, when I was looking at Charlie, he was taller than 5'11", because I like to tell people I'm 5'11", and he was taller than me.
Well, at least you're honest about it. So our next prospect, a linebacker, he's actually the only linebacker that we're going to be talking about today, and they call him Crush. In Saskatchewan, going to Bishop James Mahoney, we got Tyson Krusha-Linsky. Sorry, Crush, I know that's a tough one. 6'1", 215, class of 2020. He did a really good job in his positional drills. He was a real force in the one-on-one pass rush period.
Yep. I'm not going to try his last name. I'll just call him Crush right off the bat. He did a good job in the combine. I mean, maybe get his 40 a little lower as he kind of works out through the off season. But in all the other tests, he excelled. In the positional drills, he did a really good job, both changing directions and kind of moving in different manners and getting in and out of bags and all that good stuff you look for in linebackers. And then you're right, he did do a really good job. One of our competitive drills for the linebackers is one-on-one pass rush against the running backs. So he did a really good job with that. I mean, I think Ty's biggest point to improve would probably be a little bit of hip flexibility, but other than that, I mean, Ty did enough in the tryout as well to kind of establish himself as the top linebacker in that tryout. So that bodes well for him moving forward.
And then we've got Max von Mühldorfer. Again, we're just going to call him Max, 6'2", 250 pounds, class of 2021. We just recently found this kid, defensive end, which, you know, we think he may have a future more as a middle linebacker. But he had one of the more impressive testing days, I thought.
Yep. His lower half body numbers were huge. And he's got to remember, I think he's basically, if he's class of 2021, he might still be 15 years old.
Yeah.
Turning 16, and he's 6'2", 250 pounds, and he looks like he's not some like fast growing. He looks the part, like he's
thick. Yeah.
He is thick, and so his lower half is really thick. So I mean, yeah, he did a really good job. I know he's a defensive end, and he's probably kind of, you know, doesn't want to hear the linebacker talk, or most of the D linemen I've ever been around, if you said linebacker, they were just like salivating and we're so excited. But like, I honestly see, I can't speak to his instincts because I haven't been around him enough, but like I saw him play a little bit in his high school huddle film out of necessity for his program, but like I honestly think he could probably transition as a middle linebacker and be like outstanding at that position, because he can flat out, he can run. I mean, he's not like a sprinter like, you know, a thoroughbred, but he can run and he can move. And he's got like really good pad level, and he's super powerful. So that's kind of why I was talking that way. So, but yeah, as far as the younger defensive players invited to the tryout, he was definitely one of the more impressive ones.
Isn't he the player that we watched this film where he came all the way across the field to chase down the receiver and knocked him out of bounds before he got into the end zone?
Yeah, but he was lined up as a 3 technique at that point. So he was playing 3 tech, and there was a hitch screen, and like all the other players on his defensive unit could not catch up. And not only did he chase the player down, but like he broke the angle. Like he's the one that broke the angle. Like he cut him off. It was actually, that's one of the, it was
impressive.
Yeah. So like for highlight clips, he timed that one perfectly, because you put on a young kid's film and he's 6'2", 250. That's got my attention. He's got a whole bunch of accolades. That's cool. And then you see his first play. He gets into his pass rush, and it's a screen. You're like, okay, why did you do that? And then he chased down a really athletic receiver about 75 yards downfield.
Yeah, it was.
And at one point was literally running faster than the receiver. So, yeah.
Yeah, he'll be a fun one to watch over the next season or two. We're going to talk about Dylan Remliard, who we did speak about at the last showcase. And, you know, he was actually our surpriser. We had never heard of this kid. 6'2", 265 pounds, class of 2020, defensive lineman out of Father McCurdy up in Fort McMurray, I believe. Once again, he did a solid job, I thought, both in the combine and the individual period. He also had several solid reps in the one-on-one pass rush period as well.
Oh, yeah. Dylan did a really good job. He kind of backed up what he did in Edmonton. And then in the positional drills, I mean, he was solid. And then in the one-on-one period, he demonstrated his ability to pass rush, especially inside, where he had a couple of really good power moves. Not necessarily full rush, but like a couple of real good reps there where he got his hands inside and just moved people into the backfield and then worked a move. So he demonstrated he's got some snap and he's got some pretty powerful hands. So yeah, I think Dylan's done enough to demonstrate to me and the selection committee that he should be in the game.
Yeah, he's pretty good. He'll continue to improve as well. Our next prospect we're going to talk about is the defensive end. We've been calling him Leaf, but I believe it's actually Leff. Magnuson, 6'5", 245 pounds. He goes to Clarkson Football North. However, he's originally from Saskatchewan. He looked good in the positional drills and in the one-on-one periods. And couple this with the fact that he's one of the better long snappers in the country. that added little detail really improves his chances of making it into the game.
Yep. I mean, he checks all the boxes from a height and a weight standpoint. I mean, his combine numbers were okay. His work in the positional drills was really good. And then he kind of followed that up with a really good period in the one-on-ones where he basically did a really good job pass rushing against all the offensive linemen. And then he even stepped up and went toe-to-toe against Albert Reese. One of those reps, maybe he was on the wrong end of it, but other than that, he did a really good job there too. And then he followed it up with the fact that Leif, I don't know how you want to say it, but he's one of the best long snappers in the country. And you couple that with the fact that he's 6'5", and I think he's 245 now.
Yeah, I think
Not sure, but he's in that range. But you couple that with the fact that he can long snap, like legitimately long snap, and he's got a really good chance of going forward. I don't think like young linemen or say linebackers or people who can run, I don't think they understand just how many more opportunities they'll give themselves if they're a long snapper or a specialist.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a couple of Canadians who made their entire CFL and NFL career off long snapping. So I mean, Le Ducerrier or something. Excuse me, but like I don't know his actual name, but there's one. I think he may still play with the Cowboys after time in Seattle. He's been long snapping in the NFL for like 14 years. So I mean,
Lattiser.
Yeah, like that bodes well for Leaf. Like Leaf's gonna probably get the nod just because he's a solid defensive lineman. And he's an awesome long snapper. And I'm not taking anything away from his defensive line play. I'm just saying he's really good at both, so it gives him more opportunities.
So you mentioned Albert Reese. I mean, he's 6'7". I think every month there for a little bit he was updating his height. 6'7", 274 pounds, offensive lineman, class of 2020. He's playing at Harry Ainley up in Edmonton. I mean, the kid just exceeds all expectations. He may be very well the top offensive lineman in 2020 in all of Canada. We're going to put that out there. And we believe, I'm also going to put this out there, that includes the players that already have NCAA offers. This young man is definitely going to move up the board, and he has got potential through the roof.
Totally. I mean, his ceiling is massive. Not massive, but it's really high. Albert, like, not only... I mean, you got to also understand when he does his combine work, the fact that he's put on like 4 or 5 inches and like 45 pounds. So, I mean, Albert's just still figuring out
how to move his body.
Yeah. But not very often when we break down stuff and we look at stuff, do we use the term baby left tackle. So, I mean, I think the last time we used it was to explain a young man from Bedford Mines.
Yeah.
Who got a scholarship. And I think he's already signed, maybe even gone down to Syracuse. I can't remember his name completely, but Albert is the same as that kid. So there's no difference between those two prospects. So, like, in my opinion, you know, obviously there's a process that goes on, and there's a selection committee that has to meet. And even with our CFC 100s and our CFC 150s, you know, there's a process that goes on there, but like I'll be pushing hard for Albert to move up the list even further. After seeing him in person, like he literally looks like a baby left tackle. He's the only legitimate like left tackle, and I'm not trying to say this to be mean to other people, but like legitimate, like high ceiling, like university prospect left tackle I think I've seen this year so far. So I mean, and you said it, I think he may have a higher ceiling than players on our list, offensive linemen who already have offers, completely honestly. And I think he's going to get a really good chance to demonstrate and showcase that in the TSN game.
Yeah, for sure. We're heading into our last two prospects. We got Zach LePage, 6'2", 300 pounds, class of 2020. Another offensive lineman out of Holy Cross. Yeah, he did a good job in his positional drills, as well as excelling in the one-on-one period as an interior offensive lineman. He is not ranked, but look for him to make a debut on the CFC 100 in the near future because he did a really good job.
Yep. You know what? Just Kind of knowing, who's coming in and who's in our bullpen and such. I would say Lepage made a really good case for two things. One is to push his way into the CFC 100, and the other one is to kind of give himself a legitimate chance to be in the prospect game. I mean, he took reps at guard and center. I'm not sure if he took too many out on the edge, but I'm just going to put it out there. I think he's better off inside. But out of all the interior offensive linemen we've seen, I would probably say there was two young men who we kind of tagged as possible centers for the game, and he was one of them. So, I mean, obviously we have to, at some point see him snap, and I know he might play predominantly guard a lot. He may be asked to play center if he gets into the prospect game, but he did well enough in those drills to basically warrant himself being put on the CFC 100 and in the discussions for the prospect game.
So then we have our last prospect, a 2021 player who, again, he stuck out at the showcase in Edmonton. Nick LeMay, 6'2", 310 pounds, offensive lineman out of Salisbury. He's easily one of the top 3 interior linemen that we've been speaking about, or that we think, at least in the cities that we've seen so far. And but you can tell that he's improved since the showcase, which was equally impressive, because I remember watching him in that Edmonton showcase, and I mean, he was good, but this one, he just looked like he was more prepared, maybe understood what was happening, and he just went all out. I thought he did a great job.
Yeah, I think a lot of those grade 10s, well, they're grade 10 now, they're going into grade 11. I think the first time they do the showcase, or they jump up an age bracket or two, is kind of, it takes a while for things to kind of go back to regular speed for them. So, I mean, in Nick's case, I noticed a dramatic improvement from Edmonton to Calgary. And I know we weren't in pads in Edmonton, but I'm just talking physically. And then I think to Nick's advantage, once we put the pads on, Nick is a really physical football player. So
he's aggressive, yeah.
Yeah, he's in his element.
Yeah.
There was times where, and not to give away Nick's secrets, but Nick is a master of the jump set. So if Nick jumps you or jump sets you, it's over.
You're done. Yeah.
It's just over. And then there was other points where he would try and he would do a regular set, and he would start to get bold, and he would hop, and he would pull that defensive lineman down, and next thing you know, Nick is on top of the defensive tackle, but he's only given up 2.5, 3 yards, so he's not really into the quarterback or into his knees. So he actually, and a couple other times, he actually reset the defensive tackle. So I was like, you're looking at that, and you're like, and there's no way Nick's 6'2". Nick is 6'4", and he's 300 pounds. So I mean, if I was a university football coach, I would be drooling over some of the interior offensive linemen who are in Canada right now, and obviously our baby left tackle and
So those are all of the prospects. I mean, they're super exciting to watch, to actually see these kids, and that we've been talking about throughout the season and over a period of time, and to watch them develop. And hopefully they'll get a chance to. You'll all be able to see them on TSN on June 1st for the CFC Prospect Game. But also just a quick shout out to the youth sports coaches, recruiters who came out and watched. There was a number of them that we've seen so far. Calgary Dinos have been out, UBC, Western, Bishops, Carleton. We've got Saskatchewan,
Ottawa,
Manitoba, Ottawa.
U of T.
U of T was there at the Burlington one. Yeah. Did we miss anyone?
And just to that, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's everyone we got.
Yeah, just to that end, there's when we're at these tryouts or CFC events, we have a roster of the kids who attend. So if you're actually at the event and on the ground, you're going to get some pretty good information. So, I mean, and you're going to be able to see live testing and live testing scores going on. And we also do a variety of positional drills. So our events are not just a track and field event, and they're just not athletes running around in their shorts and t-shirts. It is a combine
It's
followed
almost
by
it's pretty intimate because there's not so many kids that the recruiters can actually get a really good look because they get so many reps.
yeah, and we actually it's structured that way. So like we only do two positions at a time, and the drills that are done in those periods are specifically structured for coaches in attendance or the talent evaluators from CFC to see whether a player can do things that are specific to his position. So it's like combine followed by almost like a pro day atmosphere,
Yeah.
followed by put your shoulder pads and your helmet on, and we're going to get after it for 25 minutes. So the whole gamut and spectrum of things are covered off, as opposed to going to an event where they just run or going to and I'm not saying it's bad, but the other things are happening, or just going to a 7-on-7 tournament. Like we cover it all off, and we actually, if you come, there's actually a roster handed out. So I mean, I can't understand why coaches or more coaches wouldn't come to the event and see the kids, especially in the tryouts. When out of our 200 and whatever 40 kids we put through the tryouts, 172 of them were CFC 150s.
Yeah.
So, so it is what it is, but it was a huge success from my perspective as an evaluation tool.
Yeah, no, it was. We were really glad that those guys made it out. So that's it for us. Like I said, you can find the rankings on the rankings tab on CanadaFootballChat.com. The CFC 100 and the CFC 150 are the top high school prospects, while the CFC 60 is the CEGEP and the JUCO player prospects, and that list will be updated shortly. So thanks, Clint, for being with us today.
Yep, for sure.
So be sure to follow us, like I said, on Facebook, Twitter, @ChatFootball, Instagram, CFC_football, and YouTube. And don't forget to purchase that CFC Insider membership today for access to rankings, analysis, and daily football recruiting news across Canada. This has been the Recruiting Masters podcast brought to you by the CFC Insider. Have a great week.